y'all, it's Brady. Welcome to my channel and thank you so much for joining me. Today is Thanksgiving Thursday, week 1, and I've got 2 super fun and super delicious appetizers for Thanksgiving for you. Let's jump in and check out the recipes. All right, so this week I've got 2 fun appetizers for your Thanksgiving table. We've got a maple bacon phyllo cup, delicious appetizer, and that is going to be a huge hit, as well as some cinnamon sugar pie crust cookies with a cinnamon sugar cream cheese dip, I guess is the word. It is also really delicious and going to be a big hit, I know, on your Thanksgiving table. So let's jump on in, get those prepared, and get these ready for your Thanksgiving table. Okay, so for our first appetizer recipe for Thanksgiving Thursdays, we're going to try out these maple bacon phyllo cups. And they're pretty simple on ingredients, just 4 ingredients. And it actually looks pretty simple to do. So I'm going to do the half version of this recipe. But I'm going to link down below the recipe where I found this. And then you can see the full measurements and all of that. So the measurements I give you today are for half, and then you'll see the full measurements down below. Okay, so you need maple syrup, a 1/4 cup. You need just under 1/2 cup of light brown sugar, 1/2 pound of bacon, and 1 package of phyllo shells. The recipe calls for 30 phyllo shells. This one package that I have, where are they? So the one package that I have has 14 shells in it. So there's 7 servings of 2, so there's 14 shells in here. So we're going to do about half of the recipe, and I'm excited to try these out. So first step is to take the phyllo shells out, put them on a either lined with parchment or one of these silicone baking mat baking sheets. You're going to line that there. We're going to set the phyllo shells aside. I've got the oven preheating to 350. And then we're going to cook up our 1/2 pound of bacon, and then we'll add the maple syrup and brown sugar and all of that to the phyllo shells. Okay, so we're going to start by putting these phyllo shells on the baking sheet. You want to make sure that this is lined either with parchment or you've sprayed it somehow, or you can use one of these silicone baking mats. But you just want to make sure that you set these aside, and then they'll be ready and good to go for you. And then you're going to want to cook your bacon. It doesn't say in the recipe to go ahead and chop it up, but I actually found that this made it cook a lot easier, and I didn't have to cook it in batches. I was able to just go ahead and use my kitchen shears and chop this up into the skillet and let it cook. And you do not want it super crispy. You just want it cooked through and still kind of chewy. Okay, so you can see what I'm talking about here. It's still pretty chewy. But we're just going to set that aside and let it cool while we place a 1/2 teaspoon of brown sugar in each little phyllo cup here. And then we'll go in with the bacon. No, not the bacon. Then we'll go in with the maple syrup, then the bacon, top it off with a little bit more brown sugar, and then throw it in the oven. I think the only thing that I would do differently if it were me is that I think I would do this brown sugar step, then the bacon, then the maple syrup with a little bit more brown sugar. You still get the flavor. I just feel like it would have done a little bit better. That's just my personal opinion, because that maple flavor with the bacon is delicious. So that's just kind of my thought there, is to put the maple syrup on after the bacon, but I followed the recipe to a T here and tried to do it in the order that she suggested. And again, this recipe will be down in the description box down below, so that you can see exactly the measurements for the full recipe and the steps and instructions. So now that I've done the maple syrup and the brown sugar, I'm going to add in the bacon, and it does say to stuff it until they are kind of overflowing, so that's what I did. And I would say that for half of the recipe, a 1/2 pound was perfect, and so I think a full pound would be perfect as well. But like I said, she does not call in the recipe to go ahead and chop it before cooking, She says to cook and then chop, but I just think this was much easier. So that's kind of my tweak on this recipe as well. Okay, so now we're going to top this with the brown sugar. And I'm just using a little measuring spoon here. I think it was a teaspoon. But you don't have to measure this. This was just adding the remaining brown sugar. I just did it because I found it a little bit easier than using my fingers to like pinch it in there. But it did make a mess, of course, but who cares? Turned out delicious. So we're going to throw this in the oven at 350 degrees for about 10 minutes. And this is what they look like, all nice and toasty, bubbly, and delicious. They are incredible. And I hope that you try these out this Thanksgiving or just for any random night and enjoy them. All right, so let's move into the second part of our video today, which is our second recipe. We're going to start with part one, which is the pie crust cookies. You need some ground cinnamon, some white sugar, pie crust, and then some cookie cutters. So I'm going to take my ground cinnamon here. I did not measure this. And I did base this off of another recipe, but I didn't follow her recipe exactly. So I'm going to leave a link down to her recipe as well for this, just so that you're aware of where I started, where I got the recipe from, and the tweaks that I made as well. So I just mixed my cinnamon and sugar together and set that aside. It says to roll out the pie crust, the refrigerated pie crust, after I let it sit on the counter for a few minutes, but honestly, I didn't see that made a difference. You just need to roll it out, of course, after you cut some out, and you need to push all your scraps together and roll them up. So you're going to do both pie crust that way. Cut out your little pieces, throw them on the floor like I did. Not the floor, but throw them on the counter, and then there you go. All right, so we're going to stick them on, and these are not like sugar cookies where they're going to spread out, so you don't have to worry about that so much. And then you're just going to top them with your cinnamon sugar mixture real quick and throw these into the oven. Okay, so it's kind of hard to tell, but they are done and they are crisp and beautiful. They're burning my fingers, but they are good to go and they are going to be delicious. I'm gonna let these cool, get them onto a platter, and then we'll make our dip and put it all together. All right, so now we're gonna make the little like frosting type dip thing. And so I've got a cup of powdered sugar, 1 block of plain cream cheese, and I'm only doing about half a recipe. If you're gonna make more than 2 crusts worth of these little chips or cookie things, you're gonna want to do at least 2 cream cheese and 2 powdered sugar, but I think this will be enough. And then I've got cinnamon, nutmeg, vanilla, and ground cloves. So you could also just use pumpkin pie spice if you have that, but this is what I have. So I am going to take this completely out of the wrapper here, and then I'm going to microwave it in a bowl for about 30 seconds, and then we're gonna whip it up with the powdered sugar, a teaspoon of vanilla, and then some of each of the spices here, and that will get us a good little dip for these little pie crust chips. Okay, and so this is where I deviated on the recipe by adding the powdered sugar and my own spices instead of pumpkin pie spice. But I just microwaved the cream cheese for about 30 to 45 seconds. I'm adding in roughly a teaspoon of vanilla, and then I'm using a 1/4 teaspoon scoop, but I'm going to try to show you here that I don't use even the full thing. You see, I used like 1/4 to a half of this 1/4 teaspoon for the nutmeg, the ground clove, and then we'll use about a full of the 1/4 teaspoon of cinnamon. And I just like to mix this in with the melted cream cheese before I add in my powdered sugar. So you're going to see me do that here. And then once you add in your powdered sugar, I threw this in the fridge just to get it to set up really well and get it nice and chilled. So you could also use a hand mixer or stand mixer to mix this up, but it was relatively easy to mix this up with just a spoon since the cream cheese was melted. Okay, so all mixed up here. You can kind of see what that looks like. Now we're going to add it to a little ramekin here, and then I top it with some more cinnamon sugar mixture, and then put it on a platter with our lovely pie crust cookies. And this was delicious and wonderful. I hope that you try this one as well. All right, y'all, so that's everything I've got to share with you this week for Thanksgiving Thursday. These are 2 super fun recipes. I also know of a couple of people who are collabing today with us in this open collab, so be sure to check out the description box down below, as well as at the end of the video, the playlist will pop up and you'll be able to check out those other videos. Because remember, this is an open collab, so participate this week, next week, the next, or one or all of them. It's up to you. I'd love to have you participate with us. Just let me know down below if you have added your video, and I will add it to the playlist. Thanks again, y'all, for being here. I am so excited about these recipes and about the future Thanksgiving Thursday videos. So, without further ado, I think that's all I've got. Thank y'all so much for joining me. Leave me a comment down below and introduce yourself if you're new. If you've made it this far, just say hello, tell me how you're doing, and that's my cue to go. I'll talk to y'all in the comments down below. Until our next video. Bye, y'all.